Daffy Dumas Horatio Tiberius Armando Sheldon Duck, also known as Daffy Duck, is one of the most famous characters in the Looney Tunes pantheon, and one of the most famous cartoon characters in general. And in today's video, I am going to discuss the history behind this Looney Duck, as today is his birthday. Yep, it has been 88 years since this duck, this Daffy Duck, some may say, was introduced to the world. Now before we get into this video, this documentary, that really fits the bill, doesn't it? Haha, 2 duck puns. Anyways, it would be greatly appreciated if you would leave a like, a subscription, and maybe even a comment. And with that now out of the way, let's quack on with the video. I'm sorry, I cannot stop the duck puns. Daffy Duck made his cartoon debut in the 1937 animated short, Porky's Duck Hunt. The short stars Porky Pig, who was the Looney Tunes series' most popular character at the time. And as the title of the short suggests, Porky goes hunting, and while hunting, he comes across a duck, who at first may seem like a normal, sane duck, but it is soon revealed that this duck is Daffy, Looney even. Here, see for yourself.
Oh, don't let it worry you, Skipper. I'm just a crazy, darn fool duck.
This duck character was created by animators Tex Avery and Bob Clampett, who went all in on the craziness of the duck. And in this first appearance, this unnamed, screwy duck was voiced by Mel Blanc, who would go on to voice, like, every famous Looney Tunes character. Design-wise, this first appearance of Daffy, who was unnamed at this point, is much more duck-like and less anthropomorphic. He does have that white ring around his neck, though, that he would retain in most future iterations. After Porky's Duck Hunt was released, this new screwy duck character seemed to be quite popular. He was a fun and memorable part of the cartoon. The reason he was so memorable was due to his personality. Cartoon characters were not known for acting this crazy, and it was just popular with the audience. And in January of 1938, a cartoon starring the Looney Duck was released, titled Daffy Duck and Egghead. Now this short does a few noteworthy things to the duck. Firstly, and most importantly, it gives him the name Daffy Duck.
My name is Daffy Duck. I work on a merry-go-round.
This short also gives Daffy his signature lisp, which although it is a light lisp, and harder to notice than future appearances of Daffy, it is still there. Now why does he have the lisp, you may be wondering? Well, Daffy's voice actor, Mel Blanc, stated, "It seemed to me that such an extended mandible would hinder his speech, particularly on words containing an S sound. It's that simple." This cartoon stars Daffy and Egghead, who is not this Egghead, but instead an earlier version of Elmer Fudd. So the short has Egghead trying to shoot Daffy for some reason. I don't know if he plans on eating him or maybe displaying him as a trophy, but regardless, Daffy outsmarts him and just acts like a nut throughout the whole short. But at the end, Egghead captures him. And after he's captured, another duck, who apparently works for the local duck asylum, comes by and thanks Egghead for catching the screwy duck. But it's then revealed that this new duck is just as screwy, and he and Daffy jump away into the sunset. This short essentially has the same design for Daffy as in Porky's Duck Hunt. Although the white ring around his neck is blue, I am not sure if that was intentional or just the result of odd lighting. I lean towards the latter as it does not really make a lot of sense, but I mean he's a talking duck, so nothing here makes sense. Daffy's next appearance was in the short What Price Porky, which released in February of 1938. And here Daffy got a very slight redesign, where he lost the white ring around his neck. No idea why, but nevertheless, it did happen. In August of 1938, the short Porky and Daffy was released. In this short, Daffy and Porky are roommates, and opposed to previous shorts, they do not have an antagonistic relationship, and seem to be friends, I think. At the very least, Porky is Daffy's manager, and they live together. And this would become very common in the future, with both characters getting along. The next 2 shorts, the Daffy Duck and Daffy in Hollywood, aren't too noteworthy. Daffy is just his usual zany self, and nothing changes at all. But in April of 1939, the short Daffy Duck and the Dinosaur was released, and this short was directed by animator Chuck Jones, who gave Daffy a slightly different personality. Not too different, but before Daffy was just pure crazy, but here, he was a bit more conniving with his antics that he pulls on this caveman, who wants to eat him. Now the next noteworthy short I want to talk about was released in August of 1939, titled Wisecracks, and I want to talk about this one because it gave Daffy Daffy a family that, from what I can tell, never appeared again. He had a wife, Mrs. Daffy, and also 4 children. Daffy isn't too zany in this one. He does have some moments, though. I'm not sure if this lack of zaniness was due to Daffy's personality being pulled back a bit, or because he was drunk throughout pretty much the entirety of the short. He was just hammered throughout the whole thing, even during his kid's birth. He's a, good fatherly influence. Okay, now we're in the year 1940, and in May of that year, the short You Ought to Be in Pictures was released, and this short drastically changed Daffy's personality. He was no longer a loony duck. He was now a greedy, selfish opportunist, which is the best personality for Daffy. In the short, he tricks, well, I guess he doesn't really trick. He just gives Porky the idea to quit his cartoon job, which the naive Porky thinks is a great idea, and after Porky quits, Daffy immediately tries to steal his job. But Porky catches on and beats up Daffy at the end. This overall is just a fun short. Now, although in this short, Daffy had a very different personality, in the shorts following this one, he still acted crazy. So this was like a one-off personality change that would eventually become the norm. Okay, now I am jumping to the year 1943, specifically July of that year, where in the short, Porky Pig's Feet. That may sound like a very weird title, but it's feet with an A, okay? Anyways, in the short Porky Pig's Feet, Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny appear on screen together for the first time. Also here you can see Daffy is a bit more anthropomorphic. Now, similarly to Donald Duck, Daffy Duck appeared in several World War II themed shorts. And in Daffy the Commando, there is a scene that I want to mention because I just found it to be very funny. In fact, I can just play it, since the short is in the public domain.
Mein Herr, mein Pumpkin, mein Wild, mein heiliger
I don't know if you found that as funny as I did, but rotoscoped Adolf over there, being voiced by, I assume, Mel Blanc, who is just shouting absolute nonsense incredibly loudly until Daffy smacks him with the mallet, is just, it's so stupid I can't help but love it. Also, another World War II Daffy short that's pretty fun is Scrap Happy Daffy, where Daffy fights a Nazi goat.
Say, this tin termite is a Nazi, a folk wolf in sheep's clothing.
So Daffy and the goat proceed to throw down, and the goat beats him up, and he begins to feel down and out, until Daffy's ancestors give him a patriotic lesson.
Hey, Daffy, Americans don't give up. No, Daffy, Americans don't give up. That's right. And I'm an American duck.
In April of 1946, the short Daffy Doodles was released, and this was the cartoon directorial debut of Robert McKimson, who gave Daffy a slightly altered design that was rounder and less elastic. Then in May of 1946, Bob Clampett, remember one of Daffy's original creators, left and stopped doing work on the Looney Tunes cartoons. And this was probably due to the feel that his cartoons had. With animators like Chuck Jones and Robert McKimson, their cartoons had more nuanced humor that was more popular with general audiences, while Clampett's kept the screwball and zany style of humor, and particularly with Daffy. After Clampett's departure, Daffy's zany behavior was pulled back on. It's shown through here and there, but not quite as often as before. And in the short You Were Never Duckier, that was released in August of 1948 and directed by Chuck Jones, Daffy's zany personality was pulled back on even more, and he was more akin to his personality in the short You Ought to Be in Pictures. And similarly to characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy was made to be more intelligent with his tricks. The next few noteworthy appearances of Daffy are, I would say, when he appeared in some of his most iconic shorts, like Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century, Stupor Duck, and Hood Daffy. Now these were a part of a series of parody shorts that were based off of existing characters and stories, where the lead role would be taken over by Daffy. Now in these parodies, Daffy was usually paired up with Porky Pig, and if you've been paying attention, you would notice that that was a very common pairing. Even in Daffy's first short, he was paired up with Porky, but eventually, Daffy was cast cast as Bugs Bunny's nemesis, and Bugs Bunny was extremely popular at this time. And since Daffy's role was antagonistic, his personality traits of greed, anger, and pride were cranked up, and I think now by this point, all of these traits were the norm. And this personality for Daffy is really put on good display in the iconic Chuck Jones-directed Rabbit season shorts, which started with the cartoon Rabbit Fire that released in May of 1951. And this was the first time that Bugs and Daffy starred in a short together.
You start it. Whatever you say, Rabbit. Duck, fire!
And Jones changed up Daffy's design slightly. His feathers were a bit more messy here. So other than the hunting season shorts, another notable Daffy short is Duck Amuck, which was also directed by Chuck Jones, and released in February of 1953. In the short, Daffy gets repeatedly trolled by an animator that turns out to be Bugs Bunny in the end, in a very fourth wall breaking manner. Now this short may seem simple, but it is actually considered to be one of the greatest cartoons of all time. It was ranked number 2 on a list of the top 50 that was decided on by 1,000 animation professionals, and the Duck Amuck short was also added to the National Film Registry due to historical significance. In around the 60s, the Looney Tunes shorts, and short cartoons altogether, kinda became less popular with the general audiences, leading to Warner Brothers eventually shutting down their animation studio. But the cartoons did not end, the animation was just done by different studios, and Daffy around this time became overly antagonistic. He was a bit more relatable and somewhat likable in the shorts in the 50s, but around the 60s, Daffy became an antagonist to Speedy Gonzales for some reason. I don't know why he was chosen. And Daffy here was just a cruel character. Not all the time, mind you, but in several shorts, he was just, like, sinister for no reason.
One insignificant drop of water could not hurt. No! That's one insignificant drop too much!
And in June of 1968, the final theatrical short starring Daffy was released, titled See Ya Later Gladiator, and Daffy did not have a good send-off. This one is considered the worst Looney Tunes cartoon of all time, and most noticeable to me, the quality of animation is just horrendous. So like I said, after See Ya Later Gladiator, Daffy stopped appearing in Looney Tunes theatrical shorts, and eventually, the shorts would stop altogether. The golden age of Looney Tunes was over. But even though this era of theatrical shorts was over, the Looney Tunes characters did not disappear, as they moved over to television. And in Daffy's case, his first noteworthy television appearance was in the 1972 made-for-TV film Daffy Duck and Porky Pig Meet the Groovy Ghoulies. And this is an absolutely horrendous movie. The animation is just really bad, and the plot too. I'm not even going to talk about it. Just know that it sucks. Daffy would then appear in several other made-for-TV animations. Literally nothing to note about these. A lot of it was some new material mixed in with a compilation of older shorts, and also reruns. For example, there was the film Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island, which did exactly what I just mentioned, though it was an actual theatrical film, as opposed to being made for TV. Nothing too interesting to say about it though. But in 1988, Daffy appeared in something good. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Ah, what a great film. Where in the film, he appeared in a very iconic scene. And that scene was when Daffy has a piano duel with Disney's Donald Duck. And there was one major stipulation that had to be followed to make this collab possible. That being that the two had to have exactly equal screen time. So as a way to pull this off, the two always appeared in the same scenes. Design and personality-wise for Daffy in the film, a very specific effort was made to have the iteration of Daffy that was in the film be the Bob Clampett version. So in the film, Daffy had his zany personality brought back. Then, in 1989, the TV special, Bugs Bunny's Wild World of Sports, was released. The special itself is, pretty unnoteworthy. But this special was actually the final time that Mel Blanc did the voice for the Looney Tunes characters, as he passed away in July of that year. So that includes Daffy. And I would say voicing the same character, in this case Daffy Duck, for over 50 years is quite the impressive feat. So after Mel Blanc passed away, Daffy's voice actor would change here and there, but most notably and most often, he was voiced by Jeff Bergman and Joe Alasky. Although in the 1996 film Space Jam, Daffy was voiced by D. Bradley Baker. And everyone is familiar with the legendary film Space Jam, right? You know, the one where the Looney Tunes characters play a basketball game with Michael Jordan to save themselves from slavery? Alright, this video is kind of running long, so for the rest of it, I'm not going to go over literally everything Daffy ever appeared in, just the stuff that seems to be worth mentioning. Starting with Tiny Toon Adventures. Now this series, which first aired in 1990, has a pretty unique plot, where the original Looney Tunes characters act as mentors to young Toon characters, and in Daffy's case, he had the protege Plucky Duck, who is a green duck, and has a pretty similar personality to Daffy, who in the show is more so based off of the Chuck Jones iteration. Next is Baby Looney Tunes, which, I mean, surely you can guess what this was about. Yep, Baby Looney Tunes characters, and that includes Daffy, though the show did give us this wonderfully out of context scene.
Hi, Granny! How the are you?
So earlier in the video, I briefly mentioned the short Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century, which was a parody of Buck Rogers in the 25th century. And in 2003, this short got an entire animated series based off of it, titled Duck Dodgers. Now this series is interesting, to me at least, as all of the Looney Tunes characters were reimagined. Like this is not Daffy. This is Duck Dodgers. This is not Porky Pig. It's Space Cadet. And this is not Marvin the Martian. It's Martian Commander X2. You see what I'm getting at? The series stars the legendary hero Duck Dodgers, who has to protect the galaxy from evil, which is mainly the Martians. The next noteworthy Daffy appearance was in the 2003 theatrical film Looney Tunes Back in Action, and it's kinda like a Space Jam sequel, but not really. I say that very loosely. It has the same style, with its mix of live action and animation. But instead of being about basketball, it's kind of like a spy film, maybe a parody of a spy film. And this movie was a huge failure. With its budget of $80 million, it only made $68 million. Which is not very good. Daffy is one of the film's main characters, and his jealousy over Bugs helps start the plot, and it's a common theme for the character in the film. But at the end, he has some character growth, and realizes he does not need to be better than Bugs. He can just be himself. Isn't that just wholesome? Next up is Bah Humduck, A Looney Tunes Christmas, which is a retelling of A Christmas Carol, where Daffy takes the role of Ebenezer Scrooge. That's all I really gotta say. Surely you're familiar with the plot. Daffy Duck as Scrooge is such a genius and simple concept that I'm surprised it was not done sooner. The next Daffy appearance to discuss is a good one, and that is his appearance in the Looney Tunes Show. And this show is incredible. It may be my nostalgia talking, but this is probably my favorite iteration of Daffy. In the show, Daffy and Bugs live together, and they usually find themselves in a variety of humorous situations. In a sort of sitcom format, it's a very simple formula. In the show, Daffy is a rude, cowardly idiot who deep down, like way deep down, does seem to be a good person. And this is the best iteration of Daffy in my opinion. I love how stupid he is.
I know it seems heavy on Russia, but when you say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall, there won't be a dry eye in the house.
In 2012, there was a 3D animated short starring Daffy, titled Daffy's Rhapsody, and this is a cool short, as Daffy was voiced by Mel Blanc through the use of archival recordings, and I'm pretty certain that this was also Daffy's first appearance in 3D animation, so that is definitely noteworthy. Okay, next, in 2015, Daffy appeared in the TV series Wabbit, which was eventually renamed to New Looney Tunes. And in this show, Daffy was more akin to his original appearance in Porky's Duck Hunt. He is incredibly wacky and crazy as well, so he has the personality from that time as well. And this would be a common theme in Daffy's appearances going forward, where he acted more zany and less like Chuck Jones's iteration, like in the next series I want to discuss, Looney Tunes Cartoons, which in this show, which was released in 2020, the effort was made to specifically be like the old Looney Tunes cartoons back in the 30s and 40s. And that goes for every character in the show. So Daffy, naturally, went back to acting crazy. This series also marked the first time Eric Bauza voiced Daffy in a mainline Looney Tunes series, who is still, to this day, the main voice for Daffy, and also a bunch of the other Looney Tunes characters. Daffy would then appear in the 2021 film Space Jam: A New Legacy. Yep, they made another Looney Tunes basketball movie. This time in 3D, so Daffy looks weirdly realistic. He also serves as the coach for the Toons basketball team, which is perfectly on brand for him. And now I am at the final and most recent noteworthy Daffy Duck appearance. I have no idea how long this video will end up being, but at the moment it's looking to be about 20 minutes, which is long for me. I'm surprised I've talked about one character for so long, but I have to do Daffy justice. Anyways, in the film, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, in the same vein as the last few Looney Tunes projects, Daffy is not at all like the Chuck Jones iteration, and more so like, yeah, the original version, like the last couple of times I've talked about. In the film, Daffy is paired up with Porky Pig as a callback to the many shorts that they starred in together in the 40s and 50s. Also, can I just say how refreshing it is to see a 2D animated Looney Tunes film in the year of our Lord 2025? I for one can't believe it. And I think that's a good place to end off this look back at the history of Daffy Duck. But before I end the video entirely, I do have something else to make mention of. In my last video, yeah, the April Fool's Keckrock one, I failed to mention the creator behind the character, that being Proxima64. So, as a way to fix my error, I will link their socials in the description of this video, and they are now linked in the Keckrock video. So apologies for the lack of credit. Okay, now back to what I was saying. If you enjoyed this pretty lengthy video on the history of Daffy Duck, a like, subscription, and maybe even a comment would be greatly appreciated. Especially do all of those things if you want to see me cover more Looney Tunes characters. This took a long time to make, so letting me know if you want to see more is very helpful. There's just an abundance of Looney Tunes characters that I'm interested in talking about. So TLDR, just let me know if you want to see more. And with that, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.